Check the description for the following discount codes. We seem to be somewhat spoilt for choice when it comes to entry-level and mid-range cockpits in recent months. We've got another offering here from GT Amiga. It's the Prime Lite R, and as you can see, it's an aluminium profile cockpit. But most aluminium profile cockpits we see are either mid-range or obviously high-end because of their rigidity, their adjustability, their customization, and you can just do whatever you want with one. So what GT Amiga seem to have done here is taken the pedal tray and the wheel deck from the Prime Lite, and the Prime Lite is kind of my recommendation for people that want to buy a cockpit that isn't stupid money, but that don't want to have to buy another one further down the road, because the Prime Lite will do everything you ever need to do for like 99.9% of sim racers. So what they've done is they've got the same pedal tray that we have on the Prime Lite, and this was the original Prime pedal tray as well, and I actually still run this on my full-size Prime. It's my main rig, it's my main pedal tray. I have got the upgraded Prime tray, but I never needed to fit it because I don't get any flex in this for the pedals that I'm using and the sort of setting I have for my low cell. I'm not a 200 kilogram low cell guy, and my pedals are assembled as one unit, and so I bolted them down bearing in mind that the weaknesses of a tray like this will be sort of here and here in between where there isn't any bracing and anywhere that's far away from a 90-degree edge. So as long as you bolt your pedals down bearing that in mind, you don't get any flex in this pedal tray. If you have individual pedals and you decide you're going to just bolt them down using the slots, then yeah, you're not only going to get forwards and backwards flex, you're going to get side to side flex as well. So if you've got a set of pedals that are individual, most manufacturers offer a base plate. Use that with those pedals, bolt that to this, and then you won't have any problems. But again, this, for an entry-level pedal tray, is probably the best entry-level pedal tray I've seen, because it's what we find on the normal Prime Lite and originally on the OG Prime as well. This is the wheel deck, and again, this is what we also find on the Prime Lite. Now, you don't have to use this. It is pretty hefty. We've got a 4mm, I would say, thick plate at the base, and then the actual section that you bolt your wheel to and its accompanying bracketry is probably 2.5mm, and it's got some weight to it. So you won't get a lot of flex in this, if any, purely because of the way it's assembled. We've got 2mm on 2mm, that gives us 4mm. That's pretty thick. And the same at the sides, and then that plate, well, in fact, the base plate plus that little bit gives us about 6mm, so it's a lot of steel here. But because this is aluminium profile, you don't even have to use that if you don't want to. You can bolt whatever your wheelbase is straight to the top of the aluminium profile itself, the 4080. And that's what you do on the high-end profile rigs. You don't kind of get a wheelbase to bolt your wheelbase to a wheel deck to bolt your wheelbase to. You just fix it to the aluminium profile. So that's kind of I suppose it's kind of an extra, because if you want to use a lower end wheelbase, maybe something from Logitech or Thrustmaster, that wouldn't be compatible with bolting it straight to the alley profile, you do have something with matching bolt holes that you can just fix it straight to. But as I say, if you've got a higher end wheelbase, there's no need to even use that if you don't want to. So yeah, pedal tray, wheel deck. There's no shifter mount. That's where they've saved some money. And they've also saved some money by swapping out the 4080 for 4040 when it comes to the long sections that make up the size of the rig. This, of course, is 4080. Now, what's good is they've retained the 4080 for the two uprights and the top where you would bolt your wheel to. That's really good to see. There isn't a whole lot else here, to be honest. We've got bags of nuts and bolts, a bag of corner brackets, and some little plastic covers. Just to point out, GT Amiga have still used their hugely and unnecessarily beefy T-nuts, so you're going to have no issues with those letting go. They are M8, so big big bolts, got a bag of Allen keys, spanner, some washers and some feet in there. And then we've got the RS12 seat. The RS12 seat is what I've been sent to test with this. The cockpit itself, because you can choose an array of different seats from GT Amiga. The cockpit itself, price-wise, is currently $215.95. It's got the Black Friday discount already applied, and I have an additional discount. If you do want one, click through, use that, save a few more quid. So 215 quid. Now that is actually cheaper than some DIY aluminium profiles rigs that I get seen put up for sale in the sim racing groups on Facebook. And it's anodised black, and it has a proper pedal tray, and it's cheaper. So I think that price is really quite good. The seats, so the seat I've got here is 180, 190. I think their cheapest seat is about 160, something like that. Again, you can have a look because there's 7 or 8 different seats to choose from. Or you can bolt your own seat on if need be. Again, aluminium profile, can do whatever you want with it. So for the whole cockpit, you'd probably be just shy of 400, maybe somewhere between 370 and 390 for the entire cockpit with a seat. That's obviously quite a bit more than the Next Level Racing Victory that I reviewed. It's another £100, but this is a much better, in some respects, cockpit. You get a proper seat, which is a lot larger. These RS12 seats are my favourite seat. I run one of these upstairs, although not this exact sort of colourway. But they are super comfortable. They're very wide, good for larger guys, and you can recline them, which for me is important. I know some people it isn't. But yeah, so for that extra £100 over, say, the Victory, you get a choice of different seats, different colours, different styles. You get a better pedal tray because the Victory had quite a lot of flex in it. Acceptable for its price and its entry-level nature. And the same for the wheel deck. The wheel deck on this is much more solid. And of course, you don't have to use it. You can use a profile. So the extra £100 from the Victory up to this gets you extra rigidity, extra comfort, extra customization. The price, it's in the right spot, basically. GT Amiga themselves have the Art cockpit. That's 130 quid. That's their kind of entry level cockpit. So what is that? 90, 85 quid less than this. Again, you lose the rigidity of aluminium profile. The pedal tray isn't as solid. The wheel deck isn't as solid. So I think they've priced this about right. And then the Prime Lite, which would be the aluminium profile one, up from this, comes with a shift mount and is quite a bit more rigid. And once it's assembled, I'll show you where this loses out on rigidity. But again, for the price, we will expect some flex and some wobble because it is only 215 quid. So there we go. Right, I think that's pretty much everything. There's nothing much to show you. Aluminium profile. If you're not familiar with what aluminium profile looks like, here's some 40-40, here's some 40-80. So there you go. That's what it's made of. I will now get it built up and we'll come and have a closer look around once I've done that, and I'll show you where the sort of sacrifices have been made to get that price down from the normal Prime Lite. As you would expect with any aluminium profile build, no big deal throwing that together. I didn't actually show you the instructions in the earlier part of the video, so I'll give you a quick peek. It's a standard affair really, just diagrams, no real text, but it's straightforward enough to put together. I mean, yes, I've done God knows how many, so everything's kind of second nature to me, but even if it wasn't, the instructions are big enough and clear enough for you to see what you need to do. They do reference the length for some of the profile sections, so a tape measure may come in handy, but there's not that many to get confused really. Anyway, and there's pretty much one size of bolt for the entire assembly also. So, well, in fact, there is just one size of bolt for the entire assembly. So that's really quite easy to put together. Aluminium profile rigs, it looks so simple in its construction, but there is actually an awful lot of nuts and bolts, and it does take quite a while to do. But yeah, that was no real hassle. It's all gone together nicely. It looks small, like the footprint looks small, because I'm used to seeing larger pieces of aluminium profile. And again, that can be a positive, particularly for people who want to save on space, or who don't want a particularly heavy rig because they might want to move it around a little bit. This obviously is a lot lighter, having less material than a big one would be. This isn't bolted down, this piece, yet, because I don't yet know where I want it once I've fixed my steering wheel to it and my pedals, so I haven't done that up. That isn't how much flex we get in an entry-level aluminium profile rig. Anyway, let's have a quick look round and I'll show you where I expect to get some flex and some wobble compared to the more expensive options, and show you where they've made the savings to get it down to this sort of £215 price bracket. Yeah, I think it looks quite tidy, particularly with this seat. This is their carbon edition RS12 seat. So you've got this kind of carbon fibre look-alike texture around the outside edge there, which, I mean, it's only, PU, polyurethane, but that with the white stitching, and then this pattern here, really quite nice. And I'm liking, I mentioned this on that other, on the Sprint the other day, I'm quite liking this new design they've got up here. I wonder if there's a peel to peel off on here. I think there might be. I can't quite do it. Anyway, yeah, I actually quite like this seat. I may even swap it out for the one on my main rig. But yeah, here's your sort of carbon fibre type effect. And it looks quite nice. But anyway, you can choose whatever seat you want. So the seat's kind of irrelevant. Wheel deck. We have angle adjustment. We have left and right adjustment should you need to offset it. We have adjustment forwards and backwards. This slot here is big enough to cover both of these channels. So if you need to move the whole thing quite a bit that way, you can, and you just wouldn't use that one. You'd have your two bolts going through that slot there. And then this whole piece itself, because it's on, well, because it's aluminium profile, you can slide it up and down. I'll probably have it down a little lower than what it is. And then the same at the bottom here, this can move forwards and backwards, which is, again, why I haven't got it fixed in place at the moment. Pedal tray, you can adjust the angle quite obviously there. It hinges here, two bolts, and of course it can slide forwards and backwards because these bolts are in a channel and the bolts that come through here are also in a channel. The seat, all GT Amiga seats have runners underneath, so they slide backwards and forwards. We also have 6 feet adjustable. You can see one there, another one under there. Another one under there, same on the other side. Now, where we're going to see flex in this rig that we wouldn't on the more expensive aluminium profile rigs like the Prime Lite or the full-size Prime, is going to be where they've used corner brackets here and here. On the more expensive rigs, we have big 10mm thick steel plates that bolt to the side here and bolt to this, and these come outside of these sort of side pieces and bolt onto that. Same either side, and at the top we will have 90-degree brackets, or even sometimes a big plate that runs across the whole thing that then bolts through, again 10mm steel rather than just these aluminium corner brackets. So that's where they've saved some money, in addition to slimming down the profile at the sides here, of course. So we are going to get, even with it bolted down, a little bit of side to side wobble and perhaps a bit of backwards and forwards as well. But again, this is an entry-level cockpit. it is perfectly acceptable to have some wobble and some flex. If there wasn't any wobble or flex, there'd be no reason to spend more money on a bigger, beefier, more expensive cockpit if we could get that sort of, you know, solid experience for only a couple of hundred notes. So that's really all there is to it. There's no shifter mount, but because it's alley profile, you can just buy a shifter mount, you can bolt it on, you know, as and where you need to. So that's really all there is to it as far as adjustment. All the usual up, down, left, right, forwards and backwards that you would expect. So I'll now throw some equipment on it, get it lined up in front of the goggle box and test it out. I've actually been quite surprised by this cockpit. I expected to feel more flex and wobble in these upright sections. Now I'll show you a close-up of me forcing it to flex and wobble. But this is me putting like all my strength into the steering wheel to try and move it. And I thought with those corner brackets, holding the uprights on, holding the top section on, we were going to see a lot of flex and wobble compared to, you know, the Prime Lite and the full-size Prime. But we just don't. And then if we look at the pedal tray close up as well, I haven't looked at the footage yet, but when I was doing this, it looked to me like the rig was pushing into my carpet more than I could see the pedal tray flexing. But obviously the footage will show us one way or another. I mean, I use this pedal tray, so I know it doesn't flex that much anyway, but it's always good to see it, you know, from that side profile in the video footage. And then I'll put up some footage of me just driving normally, putting normal forces through the wheelbase and through the pedals, and you'll see what it's like to use, you know, under normal circumstances and not me excessively trying to sort of force things to move and flex. And again, we will have to bear in mind I am on carpet here, so there will be a little bit of movement in the entire rig versus it being on a hard concrete floor or even perhaps a wooden floor, although wooden floors have flex as well. But yeah, when I was driving this, I can't say that I felt any additional give compared to me testing something out in the Prime Lite or maybe even my full-size Prime. And this isn't a feature of this GT Amiga Prime Lite R, because there are lots of cockpits out there made of aluminium profile that just use corner brackets in the positions you see them on this rig. And all of those cockpits would perform exactly the same as what this one does. So don't think this is a GT Amiga exclusive as far as performance goes. Any rig that is built identically to this from profile will have the same level of wobble and flex in those uprights for the wheel deck. So I was just surprised how little there was. I expected there to be a bigger difference between a rig that's only 215 quid and a rig that's like £700. And I think what we're seeing here actually is that sort of point of diminishing returns. Once you've built something out of strong materials in the first place, like alley profile, and you haven't gone too small in the areas that matter, like these uprights and the sort of the deck across here, when we then pay another £100 or another £200 for the next size up, yes, it's definitely stronger. It can't not be. There's more material. But is it so strong and rigid that you're going to notice going from one of these sort of more entry-level options? And for me, with only an 8 Newton meter wheelbase, obviously, bear that in mind, I can't say I really felt a huge difference. And I would be, if this was my rig, I would be happy with the driving experience. Because recently I've tested the GT Amiga Sprint, the foldable cockpit. That was good, but plenty of wobble and flex as you get with all foldables. And I tested the Next Level Racing Victory. It's £100 less than this. That had wobble and flex in both the pedal tray particularly and the uprights as well. Again, all fine for the price point. Both of those are great cockpits. One foldable, one entry level. This is like entry mid because it's another £100 more than the Victory is from Next Level Racing. But I instantly, when driving, I was like, okay, we're solid. That was the very first thing I noticed. On the very first corner when I turned, I'm like, right, yeah, there's no flex, there's no wobble. Now, obviously there is some, but as you can see from the footage, it isn't very prevalent. So I think Compromises with this, a little wobble and flex, but almost unnoticeable with an 8 Newton meter wheelbase. Throw a 27 Newton meter Acertec Invicta wheelbase, maybe we'll see, and actually run it at a high torque, we'll see some more wobble and flex. No shifter mount, but I think the lack of shifter mount can be viewed as a positive or a negative, of course, depending whether you want one or not. If you don't want one, like a lot of sim racers don't, because we're using paddles, then you're just not going to have to pay for something that you're not going to use. So that's a positive. If you do want a shifter mount, you can buy an additional mount. It's just 2 pieces of aluminium profile and a bracket from GT Amiga. And again, positives, it's aluminium profile. You can bolt the prime monitor mount on here and have your screen literally there, just behind or above your wheel deck. You could add on, I don't know, whatever else you want. It's aluminium profile bolt. You might struggle to bolt some tactile transducers around the sides here because they're only 40 by 40, but you could certainly put, a couple at the sides here if you wanted to. It's just got all that flexibility of aluminium profile. Even if you want to bolt bigger stuff to the sides, you would bolt a bigger piece of Ali profile to it to make a bigger surface, should you want to do something like tactile transducers. So I'm not really seeing a huge amount of negatives, to be honest. It doesn't wobble and flex as much as I expected it to, and it's well priced. So I think GT Amiga have got another home run here, or anybody that constructs a profile like this and prices it correctly. If this was £300, then I'd be like, there's a little bit too much wobble and flex for £300. Why hasn't it included a shift amount, blah, blah, blah. But it's not, it's 215, a bit less with my discount. So I don't really see any negatives. Oh, a little tip. I remember someone, or a few people, commented previously when fitting these RS12 seats that it's very hard to get the bolts in because of how deep and wide the seat is. And you're absolutely right, it is. It's very hard. You get your bolt in and then trying to get your Allen key in is a real pain in the bum. The trick to this, I've meant to mention it in videos before and I just keep forgetting, it's only because I fitted one today that I remembered, is that the best thing to do is put your T-nut and your bolt on the runner first by hand, do it up almost as far as you can, but allowing enough room to then just slide the T-nut into your profile. So you put all 4 on the seat first, on the runners, and then you just slide your profile on, and then all you've got to do is get your Allen key, and because the bolt is already wound down a fair bit, there's loads of room to get your Allen key in, and you only need to turn it maybe half a turn, and you've done it up, because you've already pre-tightened it with your fingers. If you can't picture what I mean, if you end up buying an RS12 seat and fitting it to an aluminium profile, or any rig in actual fact from GT Amiga, you'll know what I mean if you don't put the bolts in first. I mean, can you do this on one that isn't aluminium profile? Actually, no, you can't. So only because with Ali profile, you slide the T-nut, in the channel. So you can put your bolt and your T-nut together and then just slide them in attached to the seat. If it was a GT Amiga Art or Titan, you'll just have to get used to getting your fingers in that cramped position and turning your Allen key a quarter of a turn at a time, or doing as much up with your fingers first as you can. But yeah, a little tip there for installing the seat, should you happen to get an RS12. I have seen a few people in the comments complain about its fiddly nature, and it is a little fiddly, but that makes it a lot easier. Anyway, enough waffle. The GT Amiga Prime Lite R. It's great value for money. They've priced it slap bang in between the Art and the Prime Lite, and it performs accordingly. So I can't really say fairer than that. So as always, thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.